The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. This could be the aspiring professional looking to break into their first job, the mid level professional looking to break through and find that next promotion, or the marketing folks and the agency folks looking to break in and find their next partners. And we're thrilled to announce that no single individual is sponsoring the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast throughout January. This collaboration highlights their innovative TeamLancing model, which empowers agencies to thrive by integrating specialized strategy and account management talent. In this episode, I sit down with Christine Olivas, the founder of No Single Individual. We're going to explore her company and how they're transforming freelancing in the ad industry. And she'll explain her unique journey from law school and B2B marketing to discovering her passion for advertising and strategy. She'll explain how her personal experiences inspired her to create a model that helps agencies tackle complex challenges by assembling tailored teams of skilled freelancers, fostering collaboration and driving results. So, we're going to also dive into how no single individual integrates into agency cultures seamlessly. They're offering solutions for pitch support, resourcing gaps, and family leave coverage. Christine predicts a growing shift towards freelance strategists and account managers and emphasizes the importance of flexibility, team dynamics, and innovative perks like freelancer time off. And as we celebrate this partnership, we invite you to learn more about Christine's groundbreaking approach, their mission at No Single Individual, and how they're shaping the future of work in advertising. You can learn more by visiting nosingleindividual.com. Trust me, they're amazing. We're so pumped to be partnering with them. And you got to listen to this episode because you'll be hearing more from them this month. Now, on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Christine Olivas, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How are you doing today?
Great. It's the second day back from somewhat of a break, so doing really, really well. And I'm really excited to be here. I've been a fan for a while, as you know, so good to actually be officially part of it.
Of course. And being a part of it, we'll explain what that means. But as a reminder to all of our listeners, the purpose of this show, the Breaking and Entering Advertising, is to help people at all levels break into this industry. So that could be aspiring advertising professionals find that first job, mid-level professionals getting that next promotion, or agencies trying to find their next marketing partners. And, Christine, I think it's really fun that we're working together now, and we're so excited. I know Jack's been working hard on this too, to be working with you and your company, No Single Individual. So can you tell us a little bit about No Single Individual's mission and purpose in life as a brand? And then we're going to talk about how we're aligned together.
Sure. Yeah. So our kind of new-ish tagline, because you iterate on these things a lot for the first few years, but pretty simple: to help great agencies do great work. Advertising, I say this a lot in my LinkedIn post, the advertising industry has some of the brightest, most interesting, best conversationalists in the world. We don't need to make agencies great. They're already great. But with, sort of the industry changing, the way people work changing, and then freelancing sort of really coming onto the scene, let's call it 5-6 years ago, there is a need for a different way to look at talent. So we bring kind of a new way for agencies to do that, and we help them. We're an enabler. We're not, trying to take their glory, but our mission is just to help them do great work, whatever that looks like.
Incredible. And, learning about you and your company's background, what you're doing, trying to help agencies out, it makes sense. And I'm proud now to announce that we will be working together for the month of January. And we're really it's really excited to be working with you. You'll see a lot of our content now touting No Single Individual and what you're doing for the industry. And we couldn't be more excited to be working with you.
Yeah, same. And I think myself, I had sort of a if you had been around, let's say at the time that I was trying to break and enter advertising myself, I
Yeah.
definitely would have turned to you as a resource. But I feel like personal alignment there as well, just because I had the unconventional path and it was hard to be taken seriously at the beginning. So I love that
Mhm.
you're doing this, and yeah, I could have used it. So for the
Oh,
next
thank you so
generation,
much.
hopefully they can benefit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So this will be fun. This we want to get to know you and the company, what you guys are up to, how you're helping agencies out. But first, Christine, we need to get to know you. And the first question we can start off with is, at what point in your life did you want to break into advertising? When did you say to a young Christine, I want to be in advertising? Can you paint us that picture and how you broke into this business?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a long, windy path that could probably take an entire episode. We're not going to do that. But I was that classic sort of liberal arts person who really just loved learning and had a really curious mind, but didn't know what to do with that. And I would say 20 years ago, it was a lot less clear than it is now what to do with that. We didn't prize that kind of, I don't know, humanities sort of background as much. So I really took a lot of turns. I went to law school, actually got in shockingly, but went to law school, dropped out because it wasn't, I think, what I pictured it would be like in TV shows or
Okay.
something. And then I had a long sort of 10-year kind of history working at different B2B startups in the Bay Area mostly, and in Arizona a little bit. And then my last startup, where I was working kind of on building this sort of innovative webinar product. It was really innovative at the time to do these sort of big webinars online, sort of in the cloud. And one of the folks that I hosted, one of the speakers, was an owner and a partner at a local agency. And he said, "Look, like you're really, really good. I think you should consider advertising." And I'm like, what's the difference between advertising and marketing, right? Like I really didn't know. I don't think we worked with agencies that much at all. I was very much in the marketing kind of bucket. So
Mhm.
he made some introductions and I started, and I got a job at a pretty well-known regional agency in Phoenix. I started as an account director, so kind of a senior account person, fell in love with the whole thing and being client facing kind of for the first time in my career. And then a little bit in, sort of started to realize that there was this whole separate thing called strategy, and then started to sort of do both of them. And the rest is history. I've been kind of squarely in the advertising camp since then. But
Mhm.
someone had to tell me, which is super interesting. It just shows you like that so many people don't even know this exists and that it could be viable for them.
Totally. And what I think an indicator is like the love of learning in different things. And there's no better industry, I feel like, for that because you're always working on new projects, new clients, different categories, different brands. It's so conducive to those people that just want to dive in headfirst on different consumers and different topics. So, especially in that strategy role where that's pretty much all you're doing is thinking about who the next consumer is or what's the problem with this specific category. So, that it makes sense that you fell into that. Um, and it seemed like the spot for you. There was no looking back, right?
For sure. And I don't, it's interesting because people have asked me, like, oh, do you wish you had come at this sooner? I think maybe at the time I would have said yes, because I really did feel like a fish out of water. There were all these terms I had never heard. Like, I didn't know what a creative brief was, for example.
Yeah.
But the market, I think the 10 years of marketing and B2B marketing really did set me up for success and understanding like how clients behave, how our actual
Yeah.
end clients run their marketing departments. And then, of course, how to do B2B marketing and sales, which is not a skill set that everyone has. But yeah, at the time, I was like, oh God, I've missed out. I'm 10 years late to the party.
But you caught up quickly and then you pursued from account to the strategy track then and working at a variety of agencies, I'm assuming. I guess then the question is what inspired you to launch No Single Individual? Tell me about what was going on in your mind when that business idea came into your brain.
Sure. Yeah. So I feel like it's a bit of a cliche, but I was kind of doing the business before I formalized it, which I'm sure I think is the case for you as well. You just sort of start doing something and then all of a sudden you realize that you should make it official. So I went out on my own in early 2017, and I did some strategy roles, some accounts, some hybrid, a little bit of marketing kind of, with my startup. background, but kind of all over the place. So the nice thing about having a varied background is you can find a lot of different freelancing gigs and contracts. But pretty early on, I discovered that I was really good at kind of conjuring up relationships and businesses, and that people remembered working with me, and that my network was really kind of paying it off. And I had a lot more work than I could handle. So I already started to think, okay, is there a way to sort of scale this into more of like a team or group approach versus just showing up as my own brand every single time? The other thing I noticed, and this is true of marketing and I think strategy and account roles, is that the expectation is the person do a lot of things, right? So the classic cliche is like, oh, the VP of marketing has to write a press release and like send a newsletter, right? Those are very different types of skill sets. And then the same thing in advertising. I kept getting these gigs where they'd be like, yeah, we need you to do a social audit, but you also need to do, I don't know, pricing strategy, right? For this, kind of consumer product. And those are incredibly different skill sets. So I just, sort of got to thinking, why is it that we just sort of rely on every time we have a need for outside talent? Why do we always rely on one person? Why don't we kind of come at it with a more kind of group think, brain trust sort of approach? So yeah, between kind of the generating new business and this sort of like challenge that I saw and the way that gigs were structured kind of led me to
Mhm.
pilot this informally and then eventually make it, what it is today.
Gotcha, gotcha. So the freelance strategy model, then, can you explain this to the aspiring advertisers or the younger audiences that might not be as aware, what you were going through, and then what's the clear solution that no single individual offers?
Sure. Yeah. So I think challenge being that, solo freelancers are expected to often encompass a variety of skills
Mhm.
that maybe you're a 5 at but you're not a 10 at all
Yeah.
of, and or you have more business than you can handle, which I think is happening to a lot of folks now that freelancing is a much more popular sort of career path. And then what I forge is this idea of team lancing, which is bringing sort of a team of freelancers together and offering them as a singular unified kind of unit or product.
Hmm.
um, Creatives have been doing this forever, but account and strategy, at the time that I kind of devised this, we're not doing that. So replacing that sort of assumption that it always has to be one person with this kind of, more innovative team lancing approach.
It's it's so smart. I mean, it makes so much sense because you see the creative freelancing groups, art director and a copywriter are usually going to be their must have together, and that makes sense. Two different roles to solve that problem, but when they're hiring they're trying to fill a strategy need, then you're also employing this kind of what do we call team lancing model? Is that correct?
Hmm.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
I did not invent that term. You
Mm,
can thank some other folks that are really researchers in the freelance space for coming up with that, but it's a pretty new term. I think people are just starting to use it still. It's been kind of happening in the tech space for a while, like engineers and product and UX folks have always also come in teams, but and you
yeah.
bring up the creative thing, which I think is, definitely a passion point of mine. Like I love creative people. I have a great relationship with them. I secretly want to be a creative maybe. Like I think a lot of strategists do.
Art director or copywriter? Which one would you rather do?
Oh, definitely some on the more conceptual side.
Gotcha.
So yeah, probably not a writer or hands-on designer, but I think, conceptual creative. So maybe that's my next breaking and entering. We'll see. But I think there was an envy that I had a little bit of that, but also a little bit of imposter syndrome because, coming from tech, again, tech and sort of UX and product people were always partnering up even as freelancers. And then to your point on the creative side, it would be unheard of to hire just one creative for a pitch. You would hire a creative team. And that's always how people have talked about it. And I always thought, one, good for them because I love to have more brains to, to partner with. But two, am I qualified to work in a team? Because I'm just strategy, I'm just account, like I'm a generalist, right? Do I deserve that additional kind of support? And so there's an element of this model as well that is sort of breaking through that. Like whoever you are, you deserve the opportunity to be part of a unit that's larger than yourself.
Mm, gotcha. And maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but how are the people that are behind this? How are they enjoying it working on a team? Because usually strategists and I feel like account folks, maybe it can get isolated even at a large agency. Now with your model here of assigning teams, like are they loving that? I think I would love that.
Yeah, I think it's very much like a I don't like to think in binaries, but I think in this case it applies. Like there are the people who really, really love it, and there are the people who don't. And it's interesting
Mhm.
because the more we're forthcoming about the way that we operate, the easier it is for people to just immediately self identify. And some folks go out on their own because they don't want to be part of a team. They want to be solo contributors. They like owning the process from A to Z without having to sort of bounce things off. But yeah, there are a lot of people that are. Freelancing is huge now. I think it's like 50% of strategists are going to be freelance by the end of 2025. So we've
Wow.
got a lot of types of people out there in the ocean now, right? And I think a lot of us are saying, hey, being solo is great. I love the title freelancer. I love the title independent, right? I thrive on knowing that I don't have to directly report to somebody, but at the same time, what are the aspects of a full-time role that I left behind that I do miss? And I believe there's room for a hybrid approach sort of in the future of work. Like, should people have to choose between being on an island and being part of a family or whatever?
Mhm. Yeah, the family, quote unquote. Yes, yes, yes.
Not
That's
that
a good
there's
way of
anything wrong
putting it.
with family, but
Hey,
there's an in between there, and I think we're starting to see more like almost personas of freelancers. Whereas again, 5 years ago, it was a monolith. If you're a freelancer, it's because you don't like authority, you don't like collaboration, you don't like this, and now it's like, well, actually, no, maybe freelancers, it's not that simple. You can't like bucket and box people quite as easily now.
yeah, yeah. So I'm curious then, why focus specifically on strategy and account management? You have the skill set now, and probably the connections. Why don't you want to incorporate creatives, art directors, and copywriters?
So it's a good question. So the first thing I would say is, as an entrepreneur, I am not opposed to doing anything, and I think
Right.
we have changed little bits of what we do each year and probably each quarter to like constantly evolve and stay ahead of the competition and ahead of where we think the industry is going, to protect against slowdowns, all those things. But I'm a big believer in not selling what I don't do, and
Yeah.
not leading against what I don't do. So I would say I'm certainly open to that in the future. I think creatives have a lot of options, though. I think it's been because of this legacy of being treated. TeamLancing is inherent in the creative freelancing model. So I'm not sure. I just want to I want to be able to offer something that is, one, differentiated, and two, that I really understand, but I'm not opposed to it. I could certainly see a year down the road that there is someone who is doing something like this on the creative side that I feel really good about, and we partner, and then, we do everything, and that would be
Yeah.
really awesome. But I think it would have to be under the leadership and guidance of someone who knows that a little bit better.
Definitely, definitely, I get that for sure. I love the strategy and account management focus. I think that's really strong. It's an untapped need, I feel like, in this industry, and you're really doing a great job of putting that out there. So I want to get to understand the teams behind it all. So the curated membership roster is intentionally small. Is that correct? And how do you decide who becomes part of no single individual?
Yeah, so this is one where we've piloted and tested and optimized so much because, I mean, we're not a marketplace, as you know, in the sense that we're like, go on and fill out your profile and then be matched, right? Like, we're not a tech enabled marketplace. However, we're still a two-sided business, right? And we have to have happy, talented, interesting freelancers, and we have to have, happy, talented, interested agencies, right? So there's got to be a match there. And finding that sweet spot is not easy. Anyone who runs a two-sided model will tell you that there are constant tensions there. I mean, agencies do this as well, right? That this is why I think we understand them, because agencies are constantly saying, okay, well, I've got my clients, but I also have to figure out the right mix, and then they both have to be happy, and that there's a constant seesaw there. All that said, I think we've landed somewhere that we feel really good about. At the very beginning, it was actually shockingly hard to find people, like year one. So we started piloting this in late 2020, and then we officially started January 2021. And we had to beg people. They're like, I don't know, freelancing? Like, I have a full time job, or, or I want to do this 12-month contract. Like, people really wanted things that felt more like full time. So it was hard at the beginning. I'm not going to lie, to find the right people and sort of find people who are not only great at what they did, but great freelancers and, committed to the freelancing, sort of the solopreneurship journey. Then we had the opposite problem, right? Last year and a little bit of the year before, where we were inundated with prospective people to the point where we had to close down the website because I didn't feel good that we couldn't vet each individual thing. So I think where we finally landed now is we're really, really clear. Freelancing has also hit like its stride, right? Like this is normal now, a little bit more. We're still doing something very innovative, but people understand this model and this space a little bit more. So now we can say, to your point earlier, do you like working in a team? Do you miss working in a team? Great. Are you fantastic at one or two areas of strategy or one or two types of account management? Awesome. Are you at different levels of your career? Because we don't just go all senior and elite and premium. We try to bring people at all levels of their sort of careers. And then the last piece is, do you know somebody else that we know? And there are some agencies out there I know that are starting to do referral only. It's kind of built on that sort of vibe, right? Like a current agency client might say, hey, we have this awesome freelancer. We couldn't use them again, but maybe you could. Or one of our existing members is like, hey, there's this person, they just went freelance. They're amazing at social and we need more people there. That's not to say we would never have an exception. If someone super awesome came to us cold, we'd consider it. But we're trying to sort of, we know our values and we know our criteria, and anybody who already likes it is pretty likely to know someone else is going to like it.
Gotcha.
So
Makes
yeah.
sense. And what are some of those like benefits that you're giving them, the teams behind it all now? How are you keeping them happy? Or growth opportunities? Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, so I'll start with the kind of standard sort of perks that are included. So, obviously, getting work is the first one.
Hey, we like
Um,
that. It's
yeah, you
most
don't have
important.
to. I mean, this is no, shade to any of the places online that list a bunch of gigs. Like anybody who is doing anything to help people find work should be applauded and celebrated. That said, you still have to apply in those situations. So if you
Mm,
are, a member with us, you don't have to apply. We offer you, we look and we say, here's a new agency scope or here's an expanded scope. Who are the right
mm,
people? And then we make that offer to them directly. They can certainly decline and they have the right to if it's not a good fit or if they want to go on vacation or something else isn't, they don't like the category, what have you, but they're not applying or competing for work. And that's a massive benefit. And they're just sent offers, apply, no apply, just, approve,
yeah.
decline, day type of thing, and which is
Seems like
huge.
it seems like you're handling like a lot of the operations and all the busy work and the admin stuff for them to focus on work that comes up, and they can go all in on that. And I'm sure there's a lot of pain points if you're doing that completely on your own.
Oh, for sure. And we've done some estimates. Our latest sort of we've tried to estimate what that like percentage of time and effort saved is, and it's about 30 to 40% for every scope. Certainly the work should I would hope would always be more than 50%, but
Right.
there's the stuff from becoming, an official vendor for holding companies to late payments to getting the Slack channel set up to getting all the files downloaded and saved, in the right folder so people can just start. So there's all of that. And then, of course, circling back to the team model, the other benefit is being able to say, you know what, I'm not the strongest at social, but I have a lot of automotive experience. Well, let me partner with so and so over here who's really good at social, will be supported by a really amazing rising star. And the three of us combined will do something really, really awesome. And I'll learn, right? And the growth opportunities are somewhat built into the model simply by the team kind of configuration, if that makes sense. But then sort of official growth opportunities this year, we're getting a little bit more formal about that. So folks who are in the sort of like junior to kind of mid tier are being offered opportunities to make a little bit more than they otherwise would on a project, to take, to sort of try out a more kind of senior or leadership type role, or in the reverse, to take a lower rate on something they know nothing about to kind of shadow and learn. So we're building in some of those, and they just sort of fit within the way that we structure our teams anyway, but trying to be a bit more intentional about giving people the chance to sort of level up whatever that looks like to them.
So smart. Love it. And now I want to get into agency relationships. So your tagline is we help great agencies do great work. So how do you ensure that seamless integration into the agency's cultures, that family like atmosphere potentially? Can you share an example of a successful partnership where you all came in and made a significant impact?
Sure. Yeah. So I think one of the best places to start would be at the very, very beginning. So the very first time that we sold this into an agency. So that's not to say it didn't happen informally a few times. There were times where I was like, hey, could
Sure.
I bring in this subcontractor? Like we tried it a few times. But the first time we were officially like, here's your team, let's do this contract, was for McCann, very, very early on. And it was for a very large, long, involved pitch. And they had wanted to work with me because I had freelanced for them before as kind of a solo freelancer. And I said, look, that's a lot of work. And I think that I can offer you efficiency, but also I can help get the team up to speed on how you work. But let's get some more brains in here at different levels. And then that way we can tackle even more. So it was just a really, really good use case because immediately you could see the value, right? Instead of having one person try to attend 4 meetings in a day, but then also start the creative brief, you have someone in the background starting the creative brief shell, doing the 4 C's, or getting into the discovery. Someone else is talking to the creative team about how they like to work. And then it was so effective that when, and how pitches go, where all of a sudden late in the game, somebody's like, oh, we should take a look at this or take a look at this. We ended up being able to do a virtual focus group in a very short period of time because we could just bring in a few additional people. So that's a really, really good example. And there are tons more like that. I would say another good example would
Wait,
be,
the
yeah,
pitch is so smart. Like every agency, I feel like, because I was in the new business team at my last shop, and those are stressful, tight timelines, a lot of work, demanding, sometimes weekend work, and like oftentimes weekend work, and all these pitch opportunities. So to have your team come in, no single individual, and to own the strategy portion of it or assist in the strategy portion of it. I mean, that is just so smart. Did they have you guys come in like at the very beginning, like when they had a couple concepts already narrowed down, or was it like day one? How like and
I
what do
think,
you recommend an agency do? Like, at what point
yeah.
in the process do you call no
So
single individual to come in?
it's interesting because I think people would say, like, I think a lot of people would say, oh, day one, right? I'm a bit more pragmatic than that. I actually think that it's not realistic for agencies sometimes to know what they need until day
Yeah,
7, 14, 21. And part of the reason our model works so well is we don't expect or get angry at agencies for not giving us a quote heads up, because the entire
yeah,
model is sort of built on like being that first call when they realize they need something. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe they have another freelancer lined up and then they are unavailable. Like, managing talent is a nightmare, and some of our best, most amazing agency advocates are resourcing folks. I mean, we love our presidents and our, CCOs and our CSOs, but resourcing people who are told, hey, we don't have anybody and we need 2 people, or we need a creative team and we need a strategist and we need an account person. And they're scrambling in sometimes 24 hours to pull together, and try to be that like hero internally. So yeah, I don't know. I think like day one is great, and that's ideal. Who wouldn't love to be involved from
yeah,
square
yeah,
one? But a huge piece of our model and a huge piece of respecting agency culture is understanding that that's not often realistic, and building our model, our onboarding, our operations against the idea that it's going, not against the best case scenario, but the worst case scenario. And I think that's part of what's made it so successful. Because there are, and again, total respect to anybody who wants to be involved throughout the whole thing. But I imagine a lot of solo freelancers would get a little gun shy about those types of asks, because it basically means them giving up 12 hours a day for 2 weeks, right? Versus our model where maybe it's 12 hours, but it's across 4 people, which is a whole different ballgame.
gotcha, gotcha. And then that was the first opportunity officially, right? That was with McCann during a pitch. How did that go? Did the team like it? What were some takeaways from that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that was part of what unlocked some kind of official vendor stuff for us. And we got some referrals to other kind of agencies within the portfolio, which is great. Not to mention that a lot of those folks are either now current clients at other organizations or kind of referral sources. And in some cases, one of them is even a member with us. So, yeah, it was definitely successful and obviously a great use case to be able to talk about
Yeah,
right out the gate. But yeah, there are so many different ones. And I think it's important to sort of cover on the different, sort of sizes of organizations because, we could go on about this in a whole different podcast episode, but I'm not one to only say that one agency type is the best, right? I think like the industry thrives when we have diversity in the types of agencies and clients are smart enough to know where to spend their money. And so we work with a lot of those large, global firms, and really enjoy those types of relationships because we can make a big difference even in a massive organization, especially in strategy and account are often smaller teams. But we do work, with mid-size integrated agencies that are still independently owned but quite large, and then some kind of up and coming shops as well. And the use cases are oddly similar in all of them. Like we've got the pitch to
Yeah.
your point, which is often a really common entry point for them to get to know us and sort of see how it works in the most high pressure of situations, and sort of most high involvement. But we do a lot of family leaves. And those can be, I think that's sort of close to my heart, having a 1.5-year-old and seeing what that was like to take leave and knowing the chaos of leave and underserved nature of working and birthing parents in this country. Like we can come in and with a team, we can sort of cover a lot of ground and make it so that when that person returns, not only is their job still intact, but we've, helped them sort of ease back to their transition. That's a really popular sort of reason to engage us. Getting a new account, so being the AOR on a brand new account and really needing a few months sometimes to figure out the
Yeah.
right long-term staffing mix, and then having us be the bridge, and in all of these too, because we're not there to take anyone's job. Like, we're not a one-to-one competition. We're not there to take anyone's job, and we're not there, for the glory. I think it can be really attractive for us to come in and help them in these difficult times where they don't have as many bodies, but know that when it's all done, we're going to wish them luck, say, hope to see you soon, and move on.
Mhm. And that might go into the branding and the name convention. How does that tie into no single individual?
Yeah, so it's interesting because there's an Easter egg to the name, and I'm not going to say what it is because then it would not be an Easter egg anymore. But let's just say that if anyone's a really really good strategist and desk researcher, they can probably figure it out. But we really liked the idea that it not only speaks to the team model that we sell and that we sort of have thrived on, but also that, agencies don't need to be worried, right? Like we're not coming in again to sort of be this like, oh, I'm a person and now I want to be listed on your FE submission. There's no, there's no elbowing, there's no jostling for power. That's not really built into the model. So, and we're really here to support the agency as a whole and what the agency represents. And I think there's another level to this as well, which is that, we can, and I don't blame creatives for this because if I had done some of the work that industry creatives have done, I'd probably be shouting from the rooftops as well. But I think there has been, it's kind of like a back and forth, like pendulum swinging. But the time when I worked in big agencies in New York, there was a lot of like, who won the most awards, who's the most, famous, and this sort of like man on an island kind of thinking. And so there's also a little bit of like just a philosophical layer to the name, which is that, teamwork is still incredibly important across different disciplines. And even the best ideas still have input from other people.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Gotcha. So, as I'm looking here, then I just want to, it is the new year. It's kicking off. People are doing their predictions and stuff like that. So, I do want to know what's next for no single individual, and how do you see the freelance industry evolving? I know we teased that a little bit, but very curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier the statistic of 50% of strategists being freelance by end of 2025.
Which is wild.
I know,
Yeah.
and someone posted that on LinkedIn, so I have to figure out the post. That credit goes to whoever posted that a few weeks ago. um, so I think that's an obvious place, right? If that's the reality, and I imagine that account will sort of, they'll probably be the last to follow, just because it has historically been such a client facing important position in the pitch and things like that. But I imagine that will be close behind. And if that's the universe, we're going to need to play a critical role in helping agencies navigate that. So things that are kind of new. We are working on, we already use a package model, and the packages are sort of loosely based on use cases. So do you need a quick, SWAT team to come in for a pitch? Do you need a longer coverage for some leaves? But really expanding those out to give even more options to agencies to quickly say, hey, that's my situation. That's what I need for this amount of time. Go. So to make the kind of onboarding even quicker and more seamless. So that's a big thing. And then we'll also be incorporating in-person workshops into that pricing, because we got quite a few requests for those in late 2024, both for the end client and for the agency to maybe like upskill the strategy team or facilitate something for their team. So we'll be building, I think it seems like in-person workshops are back finally after the pandemic. So building some of that into our packages. From a talent perspective, continuing to innovate again, because I believe that there is this like beautiful space between employee and like lone wolf, the freelancer. So continuing to innovate some benefits. We are going to be rolling out. If anyone steals this term, I will find you because I'm working on trademarking it. But we are working on. We're rolling out FTO this year, so freelancer time off, which I think is pretty cool and innovative. It's going to be at a small scale. So for members that have been around for a while, getting, basically a paid mental health day at their kind of normal rate, but sort of, again, building in some of those perks, offering more benefits and perks to more of our members. And I think as far as agency predictions, I think that we'll find a lot of agencies having conversations about what their staffing and resourcing strategy should be in this sort of new world. Who should be full time no matter what? Who should always be a freelancer? What's the space in between? I have a lot of guidance there with as many agencies and resourcing folks as we've worked with, and how to be prepared and proactive, how to treat people as well when they're coming from the outside. So definitely would love to, be able to be that resource, whether or not we partner with them on a larger scope, be that resource for agencies and kind of help guide what that mix might look like in the coming years.
Gotcha. Can you hint at any advice you would give to freelancers or agencies considering a team-based model?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say one is to select a partner who has been doing it for a while. I've got to have my shameless pitch in there. I've been seeing a good number of solutions crop up, and I think it's great. I think it really is a rising tide type of thing. But I also think simply throwing three people into the mix can create more work, and that's not the goal. The goal is to make it less work, significantly less work. If I'm bringing you one person, it should be less work for you. If I'm bringing you three or four, you better not have to lift a hand, and lift a finger to kind of get things done. We want to make this as easy as possible. And we've been doing that for 4 years. So it's looking for a partner who has the experience with this sort of team-based model, whether it's us or creative or, production or something else, because you want it to not create more work, particularly for your ops resource and resourcing folks, right? Like that's a bit counterproductive.
Right.
And then I would also say, to have a little primer ready on your agency culture. I know it's a small thing, but we've had some really good onboardings this year. There's an agency that has sort of their like freelancer vendor onboarding, and it's just a few slides about their culture and their values and which tools they use and which ones they really don't, and things like that. Just having something short prepared just to get us up to speed would be really, really. I think it was amazing. It like made, not that we wouldn't do that anyway, but it gave us let us start even more quickly and get up to speed more quickly. And then for the talent side, I would say, I think aligning if you're open to it, right? If you are someone and, yourself and you're like, I really don't like, being forced to collaborate. I left my full-time job because I want to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want. Keep going. There is going to be always going to be work for you. But if you are someone who misses that or longs for that kind of like team dynamic, I would say, start to align yourself more formally with some of the collectives or organizations, whether it's us or someone else that's out there, because I imagine that competition will be tight to get those spaces, just like it is with us. So finding a way to either partner with other freelancers or build, even if it's not 100% of your revenue, to start to form those alliances and allegiances so that when things blow up again, you already have that kind of leg up. I think that
All
would
right.
be ideal.
Got it. And so for people that want to work with you or join No Single Individual, what's the best way to get started or reach out to you?
Yeah, so I would say first, I would say take a look and see, at our website and LinkedIn if you know anybody that already, we don't list every single member on LinkedIn, but you can kind of get a good sense because it is, again, helpful. And we try to prioritize referrals just to help us, grow with like minded folks. But then we do have a forum on the website. We put it back up again middle of last year, and we do look at all of them. Sometimes it can take 3 or 4 weeks for us to schedule that call, but we will, and we do take notes, and we do keep people in mind. As the second that we reach capacity or exceed capacity or people are on vacation, we're always going to need another person. So certainly feel free to fill out the form on the website. I don't really respond to DMs on LinkedIn anymore about talent stuff because it was getting a bit overwhelming. It has gotten overwhelming, but
Yeah.
we look at every single thing that comes to the website now, now that we have a larger kind of business team. And so I promise someone will look at it and you will, assuming you've been freelancing or you have some strategy and account experience, we will definitely talk to you and see what you're all about.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And that the same advice for any agencies that want to reach out and work with you?
Oh, they can DM me on LinkedIn.
Anytime. DMs are
Yeah.
always open.
I was gonna no, I'm just kidding. I mean, LinkedIn is usually how probably 90% of those connections come from LinkedIn or connection requests. And, I'm never going to stop having one-to-one relationships with our agency clients. So a lot of folks have my cell phone number and will reach out and say, "Hey, we got a pitch tomorrow. Anyone
Yeah,
who
we
can
need
present."
you. Let's
That type
go.
of
Yeah.
thing. So I welcome, any inquiries. And at this point, I still do handle all new agency relationships. We have a pretty stellar team, really like helping our existing clients have the best experience possible. But it's all me. So folks can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn or just email Christine at nosingleindividual.com. I will talk to any agency, and again, even if I can't, we're not the right fit at this time, I can certainly offer, guidance on that staffing model piece that we talked about and sort of things that I've seen be successful with other shops that are the same size or style or what have you.
I love it. Well, Christine, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about what you're doing and working with us. Folks will see more of your content on our platform this month, and I just can't wait to see all the success that you all bring to agencies in 2025. I think it's so awesome this dynamic that you're creating.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. And I will be out and about this year at lots and lots of different events. So also feel free to follow me on LinkedIn because I'll be posting a lot about speaking opportunities and happy hours. And I'm going to be doing the grand tour. I'm going to try to make it to Cannes as well. So
Nice,
definitely, yeah, let's connect. I accept most connection requests. So I'm open.
wonderful. Well, Christine, thank you so much again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.